So for today's message, we're going to title it, Right Where We Need to Be. Right where we need to be. Before we get into it, let me ask an honest question. Raise your hand if you have ever locked your keys in your car. You mean to tell me there's an entire group of millennials on this front row who have never locked a key in a car? Well, in my Tyson work truck, I do not have a key fob. It's old school manual. Thank you. See, someone understands. Locking your keys in your vehicle can be a rough time, right? I'm someone who normally never ever does this. I try my memory. I try to keep it on point. I try to make little acronyms for stuff so I can remember things. I write a lot of notes. 3 times in 4 months, I have locked my keys in my work truck. Not even my personal rig where I could put a passcode in. My work truck where there ain't but one way in. I found out the very first time that I did it, called my boss. He was like, "Oh, it's all right. I'll get the spare key and bring it to you." He shows up. "Where's the spare key?" Well, I don't know. You didn't give me 2. If you did, I wouldn't call you. So I'm in a hard spot, and my boss is like, "Well, we'll see you later." Okay. $75 later, locksmith. A month later, in Idabel Walmart, getting some water and Gatorade for the week. When I went to Bailey's and did it the first time, I didn't realize it till I come back out to the truck. I went reaching for keys, and I was like, "Oh, no." Well, with it being so fresh in my mind, I pull into Idabel Walmart, getting ready to get out, shut the door, and I took a step and was like, "Nope." And just looked at them, and I said, "Yep, there they are." That one was $85 later. The third time, which was just a couple weeks ago, luckily this time I was at least at home. Got home. Kimberly got home a couple hours later, and I was like, "Hey, guess what?" And she was like, "What?" I was like, "I locked my keys in my truck again." I can't repeat any further of that story, at least a moment of it. But it just pretty much had to do with where my head was and just not good. Completely understood. That time, at least I was home. I went to the shop, got a piece of metal, put a bend in it, got a wedge, put it down, was able to break into my own truck. So just about everyone in here, if you've not locked your keys in your car, you've seen someone lock your keys in your car. Who knows that that's a hard situation to go through sometimes? And your options are have an extra key, call a locksmith, or get it out the hard way. It's no different in life. It's zero different in life. God might let us go through some things, but He is right there with us. This COVID-19, this pandemic that we're going through, how many of us have heard conversations about how awful things are? And, I can't believe we're having to go through this, blah, 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 blah. A bunch of wishy-washy whining. What if it is right where we're supposed to be? Did God, the creator of all, the Almighty, did He wake up when the pandemic started and go, "Man, where'd that come from? COVID-19, never saw it coming"? No, that did not happen. Nothing catches Him by surprise. We're right where we're supposed to be. Let's look first today in the Word at Mark chapter 4, verses 35 through 41. Mark 4, 35 through 41. And prior to this passage, Jesus has been speaking to a crowd, to the multitude, by the seashore. And He's been speaking to them in parables. He's been trying to teach them, talk to them, and he's done it in parables. But then he decides to speak to the disciples privately. It says, on that day, when evening had come, he said to them, the disciples, let us go across to the other side. And leaving the crowd, they took him with them in the boat, just as he was, and other boats were with them. And a great windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking into the boat, so that the boat was already filling. But he was in the stern, asleep on the cushion. And they woke him and said to him, Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing? And he awoke and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, Peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. He said to them, Why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith? And they were filled with a great fear and said to one another, Who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him? Little side note, getting off point of where we're going. When we face these storms in our lives, that's the fear that we're to have. The fear of the Lord, not the fear of the storm. That's something that we desperately need to remember in these times. Being a Christian does not mean that we will not go through stuff, through hard times, through chaos, through crisis. Does not mean that at all. What it does mean is we have the blessed assurance that He is right there with us. We've talked about this in sermons before. We've gone into greater detail about it. As a Christian, you're probably going to go through more hard stuff. Are you not? But you have the Almighty right there. Put your face in the wind, trust God, and go. How many of us see the storm and stop? How many of us see the storm and rather than going and grabbing an umbrella and your galoshes and your frog togs, how many of us just look out the window and we're like, nope, plans are ruined today? Perhaps that's exactly right where we're supposed to be. But we don't consult God, and we just toss it. Plans are ruined, right? Put your face in the wind, trust God, and continue forward. It takes boldness, it takes courageousness, and it takes faith to live a Christian life. That's all there is to it. If you were going to live a Christian life, it is going to take some guts. It takes guts to walk the narrow path. But He is with us. Psalm 16:8 says, I have set the Lord before me, because He is at my right hand, I shall not be shaken. One person is happy and excited to hear that. I have set the Lord before me, because He is at my right hand, I shall not be shaken. That is awesome. That is good news. We're going through some stuff right now that's trying to shake us, that's trying to tear us up, that is trying to divide not only this country, but the church. Tomorrow we're going to take another step in it, mandatory masks. It's trying to shake us. If we'll keep Him at our right hand and realize that He's with us and walk boldly forward into it, we will not be shaken. Everything that we go through, we need to give to God, but we need to give it to God in trust. We need to trust Him even though He's allowing us to go through something hard. We need to trust Him as He walks us through the hard thing that we're going through. We need to trust Him as He builds and creates and gives us and guides our way out of the problem. And at the end of it, we need to trust what He taught us as we went through it. That's training, right? pruning. There's plenty of things that we're going to go through. Have we ever come out weaker on the other side? We may have come out a little more tired, a little beat up, but we have come through with new wisdom, new knowledge, a deeper relationship every time, have we not? If we trust God through it, He's going to bless us on the other side of it. To do this takes intense focus and trust. So for a second, let's look at the importance of our focus. What we choose to focus on soon begins to dominate our thoughts. What we focus on will soon dominate our thoughts and then start dominating our lives. That's just the way it works. If we constantly focus on COVID-19, if we constantly focus on our problems or our issues or our circumstances or the bad things that we're going through, we will allow our problems to dictate the direction of our lives. And guess what? As we focus on, who in here has ever made the mistake of focusing too much on your problems? Yourself. Not putting it to God, but focused on your problems. Have the problems ever gotten better when you've had an intense focus on them? It's like you're underwater to here, and then you just continue to focus and focus and focus on it, and before you know it, you're sitting here like this, trying to do it on your own. Before you pray and think, someone send me a life draft. Someone give me some Jesus. If we'd have done that at the get-go, we'd have been playing in knee-deep water. We cannot focus on our problems, otherwise they will get worse and dictate the direction of our lives, which will be poof. If we focus on the people in our lives, then we allow those people to influence and direct our lives. Who in here has heard the term or the statement, guilty by association? We've heard that, right? This is a big thing for teenagers and young folks. Well, if you run with that crowd, you're going to end up being like all the people in that crowd. It's no different. I mean, we stress and emphasize that on teenagers, but it's no different when we're adults, is it? If I have changed, if you can see a 180-degree turn in my life, and I'm living for the Lord, I'm living a good life, I'm trying to be an example for the kingdom and for my Savior, and I'm around those people that build me, that sharpen me. But then I begin to hang out with people who say a lot of things that they shouldn't say, who act in many ways that they shouldn't act, who consume things that they shouldn't consume, who live an unfaithful life. Not only will that start to affect what y'all think of me, which isn't necessarily the important part, but is that not going to have effect on the things that I do? It's just the sad nature of it. The people that you hang around with will influence your life. And while you may stop and draw a line in the sand and say, I'm not going to do that, while you may not start doing the bad stuff, you may stop doing the good. Just the way it is. If we focus on people, it's going to dictate and influence the direction of our lives. But when we decide to focus on Jesus Christ and allow Him to take the reins, allow Him to have true control over our lives, when we invite Him to take it and we give everything to Him, then He will guide. He will be our counselor, our defender, our deliverer. Is there a person in this room that can deliver us out of a spiritual battle? There's people that God can use as a tool to help, right? But only Jesus Christ can truly deliver you out. So we should focus on Him then, right? And not the other people. Not our problems, not our issues, not our circumstances. Every time that we're challenged with a new obstacle, or we're facing something unknown that we've never dealt with before, we should turn it over to God right then and see what He says before we ever try anything ourselves. Pray about it. Lift it up. When we're butting heads with a coworker, give it to God. When we feel like we're mistreated by a friend, which happens, we need to give that to God. And it's important that we do that first, and that takes intense focus. When we are hurt by a loved one, we need to give that first to God. Again, that takes focus, intense focus. That's why it is so important. Do we think that if we would focus that intensely and give those things to God, that it would change our reactions? If Gene walks up to me first thing this morning and says something mean, horrible, off the cuff, and I just, without allowing God to counsel that situation, I just react and fire off, have I not taken it a step further in the wrong direction? And now we've started this. Rather than giving it to God and allowing Him to counsel my thoughts, cool me down, and give me a response that edifies not only to the thoughts that I have, but allows Gene to feel what he should feel. Not my condemnation, but Jesus' conviction. Well, that changes the situation completely, doesn't it? And if we will allow it to change our reactions, it will change our relationships. When we find ourselves in the midst of chaos or crisis, would it benefit us more to rely on God's strength or our strength? It's not rhetorical. I'm really asking y'all a question. I've heard one person answer, his, right? Rely on his strength. How many of us have made the mistake of getting into a bad spot and being like, I can handle it? I'm a dude. I'm a macho man, blah, blah, blah. So I promise you, the first step into a bad spot, I'm like, I got it. A lot of guys that are that way. Give it to the mighty one at your right hand. When you're in need, look to God. When you're in a desperate situation, look to God. Seek the courage of the advocate at your right hand in all that you do. If we'll intensely focus on that, He will be our counselor and our defender and our deliverer and give us love. It's amazing what will happen when we really, really, really try to focus in on that. You make a lot less people mad at you. I've started to learn. You hurt a lot less feelings. Everything we do in our lives should be in the context of our relationship with Jesus Christ. Everything. And have we ever stopped to realize that? Like how awesome it is that the Creator of all is right there with you and going through it. What a blessing that is. How awesome it is. How selfless an act it is that while orchestrating and creating everything, He's right there with you in everything that you go through. As I look at you and your beautiful daughter, Samantha, let's say we're going to speak a lot of life. Let's say she lives to be 120. Are you going to be there every step of the way? 100%. All day, every day. And I don't mean like, oh, I'm always here. I mean like in step. There's Cammie, there's Sam. You going to be able to do that? Not unless you live to 140. She's going to go to school. Unless you just failed a whole lot of grades, they probably won't invite you back to first grade. We can't be there. No one can be there for someone else that much. God takes the time to do it, to be at our right hand at all times. Have we ever stopped and thought how amazing that is? and how blessed we are to have that? To be beside us, to guide us, to counsel us, to defend us, to provide for our every need at all times, to grant us joy, peace, and hope in a situation that seems rather hopeless. He is there. How could, when we think about that, when we put that at the forefront of our mind, how can we ever feel down or desperate or broken or empty when He's at our right hand, when He's right here? Isaiah 41:10 says, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." What confidence, boldness, and courageousness that should fill us up with. That should give us, just that right there should inspire us to continue taking steps forward for the kingdom. That ought to fire somebody up. Look at the heroes of the Bible. Did the heroes of the Bible go through some things? Did they go through things bigger than a mask or a pandemic? Did they go through bigger things than fake news? Yes, they most definitely did. The heroes of the Bible faced giants with a slingshot. The heroes of the Bible slept and shared a bed with lions. A hero in the Bible led an entire nation out of slavery and through a sea without getting a drip of water on them. A hero of the Bible was sold into slavery by his brothers, who he later saved from poverty. One of the heroes of the Bible built the world's biggest yacht, while the entire world laughed at him. We think we've got it rough with a pandemic. All the heroes in the Bible did what we're talking about this morning, and it may have taken some tries, just as it may take us some tries. But they were right where they needed to be. Even though they were going through something hard, they were faithful, gave it to God, and asked Him to counsel and lead the way through it. And they did it. They didn't stop and realize and think to themselves, oh, it's a mistake that I'm here. Bad things are happening. This isn't supposed to happen. Bad things happen. They put their face in the wind, trusted God, and continued to move forward. Did they accomplish these things because they were such awesome, great, wonderful, talented, skilled, gifted people? Or did they do it because of the power of God in their lives? Did they do it by means of themselves or by means of kingdom intervention? They did it through God. They gave it to God. They did it His way. This world, our current issues, our current set of circumstances, let's be honest, it has seemed overwhelming at times. And it's overwhelming because what has the world done? It's one of the things we talked about this morning. It's focused on the people and it's focused on the problems, but there has been no focus on God in it. Not publicly. Maybe corporately in a church, but not corporately in our country. It's been the problem and the people. What can we do about the problem? Focus, focus, focus. Problem, problem, problem. What can Dr. Fauci do? What can Trump do? What can the Democrats do? What can the Republicans do? What can the nursing community do? What can the people do every day wear a mask, don't wear a mask. Half the people say wear it, half the people don't. The experts. The expert is Jesus Christ. And if we would focus on him, maybe we'd get out of this junk. And we'd get out of it better than we went into it, because this country and this world is spiritually deprived right now. Because we are focusing on problems and people and not God. Things may seem pretty awful, but we are right where we are supposed to be. Ray, since all the kids aren't in here, I'm gonna rely on you heavily in this next part. God is faithful.
Trust God!
All y'all helped out, so I know you can do something. God is faithful.
Trust God!
Man, all three of you were about to hurt my ears. Last place we're going to look this morning is Isaiah chapter 55, starting in verse 8. Isaiah 55, starting in verse 8, says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are my ways, your ways, my ways, declares the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. For as the rain and the snow come down from heaven and do not return there, but water the earth, making it bring forth and sprout, giving seed to the sower and bread to the eater, so shall my word be that goes out of my mouth. It shall not return to me empty, but it shall accomplish that which I purpose. I shall succeed in the things of which I sent it." There was never a moment where God sat in heaven and went, "Man, look what Cody's going through. Didn't see it coming. Look what Judy's going through. What are we going to do?" It's not a mistake. We're right where we're supposed to be, but have we focused and got God right where he's supposed to be? Is he with us, or have we pushed away? Is he with us, or are we trying to do it on our own? The things that not only the church, not only every person in this room, not only every family represented in this room, but the things that the entire world need to do are realize that we are right where we're supposed to be. God didn't make a mistake. It didn't catch him off guard. And we need to quit focusing on people. We need to quit focusing on the problem. And we need to focus on God. And he will get us through this. He will deliver us from this. He will counsel us as we go through it. If we will do those things, not only will it change our lives, but it will change this world. We're talking about being right where we're supposed to be. This weekend was awesome. It was awesome. I truly, truly enjoyed myself. I think, whenever anything's coming up like that, and you're in my position, that, it may feel somewhat overwhelming. It wasn't for me. I got to enjoy it. I got to watch it. And the same for Kimberly. I can speak for her when I say that being the director and the one that has to make sure everything kind of comes together. But it didn't have the biggest effect on us this weekend. God put something on Sandra's heart for her to do. She was right where she needed to be this weekend. If we will take the time to realize we're right where we're supposed to be, then we can start to see and focus on right what we're supposed to do in it.